Well, let me just say thank you so much for coming. I have been just ecstatic about connecting with you. I learned about you through your mom, Frankie Darcel, and I said, you know what, I have to have her on for a couple of reasons. One is that I'm just so proud of you for going into the industry. Let me just say that.
Thank you.
Because it is something that is so needed and we can't talk about it enough. I'm going to also see if I can change the view here because I want to show both. So I'm really thrilled that you took, there we go, that you took on this field because we experience stress and anxiety and anger and frustration and confusion and depression and all kinds of things all of the time. Our life ebbs and flows. Not something that I learned as a young person. I didn't learn it until, my adulthood, which, by the way, for me, I'm thinking, way late in life, because there are a lot of things that I could have looked at life a little bit differently. So, number one, I wanted to make sure that I had an opportunity to talk to you, and if it works out, talk to you frequently, because we need to talk about the subject, not just for the public, but, even for ourselves. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who said that, she was struggling, but, she is a professional and she's always on and she's the one that's, everybody comes to, but she needs help. And I said to her, it's just like a heart surgeon. You can't operate on yourself.
Absolutely.
You cannot operate on yourself. And so we've got to get past this whole stage where we feel like we're supposed to be on a pedestal, or we're supposed to be just perfect in order to do the work that we're here to do. So one reason that I wanted you on is to talk more about the conversation. The second reason I wanted to have you on is because you're young. And there are so many young people out there who need to see more leaders like you who get it. You get it. It's a struggle. It's not something to be ashamed of. So yay! I've got Phallon Foxworth in the video.
Very excited, and thank you for having me as well.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for saying yes. Do you want to tell us what your specialty is, and how did you come about being a part of the mental health industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know what happened. Somewhere in my teen years, I just fell in love with the brain and just the way we operate and why we do the things we do. I may partially attribute it to the show Criminal Minds. I loved it. I still love it. But when you take away the fact that it's television, just the way that they go about understanding another person, I loved that process. So when I began undergrad, and I started getting more into psychology and understanding and just trying to figure out which direction, whether it's research or, you have the people who just take so many different directions, whether they become teachers and all these different positions. I wanted to be on the ground, so to speak. So I had an opportunity to do an internship working with individuals who had all types of different experience, who were actively suicidal, people who unfortunately when they were younger experienced sexual abuse. So all of these different stories and backgrounds and perspectives, I just fell in love with it. So I said, I'm gonna go ahead, I wanna take the counseling route, and this is where I wanna be. I'm still searching in my journey for a specialty. When we talked before, I expressed my interest in criminal psychology and forensics, and I did have the opportunity to do my internship, which I had to do my second year of my master's program in a correctional facility for women. So just
yeah, that's
all
another
of the,
specialty.
absolutely.
Wow.
So just all of the different pieces of the human experience I've found to appreciate and to love. But of course, I'm always going to be a huge advocate for mental health in the Black community. Absolutely.
Yes. Well, kudos to you for finding your love early on, and also for sticking with it to become educated, so that you can help others professionally. So that's a huge, I believe, sacrifice, because you could have been many other things, I'm sure. But and it takes a lot, doesn't it, to help other people? How do you manage the amount of energy that it takes to assist other people, and manage your own, mental health? Because it's got to be difficult. I know firsthand that it's difficult, because I do talk to people one-on-one coaching, and it's a lot.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you asked that question, because it can definitely be taxing. So if there is someone who's listening who's interested in the field, this is something that someone told to me as well, is that you have to be prepared to listen, and listen actively, but also not hold it. You can't hold other people's trauma, other people's experiences, because you're just going to be weighed down by noon. You haven't even eaten lunch yet, and you're just mentally just done, So that's one thing I've definitely had to learn early on, is implementing boundaries for myself, being able to ask questions and empathize with a person enough to relate to them, and to be able to help them experience or get through their experience, but not so much that I live their experience. And honestly, I also have a therapist. It's actually very common for therapists to have therapists.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a huge help. And of course, it's not to go to my therapist and, tell her about everything that my clients are telling me. Absolutely not. But it's so much to work on my own stuff, and what my experience with my clients has left me with. Because we can be triggered too, unfortunately, by other people's experiences and what they're telling us. So I definitely have a therapist that I see weekly, and that helps keep me
good for you
in check.
Good for you. Good for you. I knew of a few clients who married psychologists or psychiatrists, and they were not amenable to getting help for themselves. And I thought that was just the most bizarre idea of, you just can't handle the whole world on your shoulders. And then when your own life falls apart, it's very difficult for, at least it was for these guys, they were guys, to grasp how to keep their family unit in check and how to keep themselves in check. One actually had an addiction to porn, and the other one was he was just working hard and trying to do the right thing, but his personal life fell apart. But I said all that to say they did not seek help, until after, of course, the marriages fell through. So good for you for doing that. And we also have this assumption that because you're in these fields, that you're unbreakable, that you are, you can take on the world. And it's that you are human. I love the fact that you said that we are triggered as well. We are. So we have to do our own work. How do you manage, you did mention having someone to consult with on a weekly basis, but your own self-management, because I'm sure you're given a gazillion tools a day. Right. And how do you manage that?
So the best way that I manage that, and that's something that was definitely, I was trained on in grad school, was being able to hold my own composure, because the reality is therapists work with people who may be complete opposites, who may have completely different perspectives, with Black Lives Matter going on. There's so many different people that we work with that we have to just know how to not exactly try to change a person's experience, change a person's mind. It's not so much about our differences or our similarities. It's about solely the client. And I hope the way I'm phrasing it is making sense. I just really found it helpful to, in the beginning of session, when I'm first meeting a client, I'm going through my HIPAA spiel and all of that good stuff, that I'm transparent. And I say, if I ever say or do anything that you don't like, that you might feel insulted by, or you feel like I missed the mark, please tell me. I am a human as well, so please tell me respectfully. But at the same time, I know that I'm human and I may have a human error. And usually they give me that same respect. If they feel like they've said something to make me feel a certain way or make me feel uncomfortable, I do my best not to show it, because again, I'm here for you. But just having that transparency and building that rapport with other people, and having that mutual respect was something that has been huge and beneficial for me when it comes to those type of situations. And if I do get triggered by something that someone might say between sessions, I definitely play my music. I do what I need to do to just regroup. If that's call a friend that I went to grad school with. That's the best part of going to grad school with other therapists. Now you have a bunch of friends who are therapists that you can call on. So just reaching out to others and making sure that I take care of myself before I take care of others has been something that I've had to get used to doing.
Yes, and we constantly have to remind ourselves to do that. I know, even just as a mom, as a parent, it has been very difficult not to take on the energy and problems of my children or my family members or even the job. So just on a very basic level, what do you tell people? How do we disengage so that, we feel more empowered?
So that's difficult because all of the roles we have, we naturally want to excel. We naturally want to help our children or our brothers, sisters, whoever it may be. That is so difficult only because I'm partly a perfectionist. So I want to help everyone and I want to do it well. And I want everyone in my life to be happy and rainbows and all of this great stuff.
I so relate to you.
Yeah, I think I really just have to check myself and recognize that, say, for instance, if I have a friend who is really struggling, I really want to help, I know how I can help, I have all these tools and packets that I could give them, that it's their life and their experience, and that they have to go through it just like, however it's supposed to go. And just knowing that I'm here and that I have these resources that I'm more than ready to email to you is something that I think would help. It's really a kind of an ego thing. I would say for myself, it's kind of an ego thing. I'm a therapist. Mm-hmm. I have family members and friends who I all want to see do well and be well. But the reality is I can't help everyone, but I can be here if they do need help.
You said something that really speaks to me. And of course, I had to learn it the hard way because I'm not a therapist. You do have to allow people to walk their own journey. Of course, you'll tell them, but only give that advice or give that assistance when they're ready. That's a hard part. And I see what you mean by it's kind of an ego thing. It's like, oh, I can fix that. I got the answer. Mm-hmm. But people have to walk their own journey. Wow. Yeah.
As painful as it may be to watch.
Especially when it's someone that you love. Yes.
That's the hardest part. And I would imagine, for doctors, if they see a loved one who's unfortunately passing away from an illness, they have all these tools and all these, they're trained to fix people, to help people, to, help people live. And when there's nothing more that they could do, and there's nothing more that their family member's doctor can do, it's defeating. It feels very defeating. And you kind of have a moment like, this isn't how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to save the world. Yeah. But it's not always the reality.
It kind of puts me in the mind of what we're dealing with now, even that with the whole pandemic, and we have several going on at one time, right? We've got COVID-19, we've got Black Lives Matter, we even have domestic violence, a rise in domestic violence. So that's yet another pandemic that we're dealing with. But I'm in the mind of those people who feel like they know the answers, they can work, they're willing to work, they want to work, they know how to fix things because of their their careers and the money that they make behind it, and if they could just get back to work, to where things used to be, they could fix everything else that's fallen apart in these last few months. But like you said, it's a process.
It is. And my heart just goes out to everyone at once, just because I know that it's been tough. This is July, almost August, and that's what, 4 months, 4 months of safer at home practices, and the things that I know people are facing, our own personal demons, our personal experiences. And just like you said, domestic violence has risen, or, at least the reporting of it has risen, children being hurt. It's just so much that my heart aches for, that goes on in the home. So that's why it's just so hard to have this, continue to go on, because I know that there are people where home is not safe, and
it's not safe,
where home is not safe, and they are told to stay home, and they're stuck at home where it's not safe. And where can we go? I mean, maybe go for a walk, for how long,
But you still have to go back home.
You have to go back home. For some children, they got their meals at school.
Yes.
So now that they're home, what are they? It's so much that has gone on because of the COVID pandemic.
Yes, because we're stuck. Yeah.
Stuck.
We're literally stuck. Let's talk about children for just a moment. I did some substitute teaching. I taught at Spelman for a while too. I think I was gone by the time you came, but I was there for 7 years, from 2007 through 14. Yeah.
I just missed you. I came in 2014.
That is so funny. Oh my gosh, that is so funny. But I used to teach in the wellness department. But and in between, I have daughters that are 21, 25. So my thought as a parent was that I would, travel with them when I could through their educational experience, and just become a substitute teacher. And I would just do substitute teaching when I could. Well, I've really got my feet on the ground to understand what people are going through in their homes through that experience, because there were children who depended to come to school in order to eat. Just like you said, I remember a young man that came in late. Parent got him in late because the bus had already come and children had already eaten, and he rushes in, and one of the other teachers said, well, you can't eat today. You can't have breakfast today. You're going to have to wait for lunch. The child went ballistic. He went from 0 to 1,000 in 2 seconds. And as I stood there watching him, I thought to myself, what on earth is going on? Well, the other, teacher was just very matter of fact. You'll be able to eat lunch. You can't do breakfast. And she tried to, console him a little bit, but he wasn't having it. So she put him in timeout, and I went over there. I'm not a regular teacher, so I could kind of break the rules. I went over there to talk to him, only to find out he was he had 6 other siblings and no food in the house. So just being told that he could not have that meal just sent him into a tailspin. So when you just mentioned that sometimes home isn't safe, I've just got a flood of examples that I've seen over the years. Children being beaten at home, and school is a safe space for them. It's a way to get away from them. Nobody's talking about that though, Phallon. Nobody is talking about what is happening to the children through quarantine in their homes, because everybody's saying stay home.
Right.
Do you have anything that you could impart upon us dealing with that situation?
I feel like, well, one with your example of the kid that you were substituting at the school for, that probably took one question to find out what was going on. 1 to 2 questions, and you have all of this information about this little boy's life and his experiences and what's going on for him. That it's not just he's upset because no one will let him eat. It's not because he was told no. It's because he was told no and he's hungry. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be another 3-4 hours until he can eat, when he may not have eaten since lunch yesterday.
Exactly.
Right? So, and I mean, unfortunately, sometimes we just don't know until we know. But what I really hope that we can put into practice is being mindful that our lives are not parallel or synonymous to other people's lives. So just because we had breakfast doesn't mean that the person next to us had breakfast. Just because we had a great day at work doesn't mean the person next to us didn't get fired, right? So that's one thing that I would love to drive home. And I do this with almost all of my clients because this is my favorite activity ever. But it's something called the anger iceberg. And so it's a diagram of an iceberg. At the top, above sea level, above water, you see the word anger. But underneath, below sea level in the iceberg, you see overwhelmed, anxious, disappointed, hungry, tired, lonely, scared, all of these other words. So we see the anger, we see the tip of the iceberg. That's all we see. But underneath, there's just so much more going on. So if we could just put into practice, just digging a little deeper before we let our own emotions take over. Because I'm assuming the cafeteria person who told him no just saw the anger, like, oh, here goes another kid, or but there's just so much going on for all of us. And I always say, the phrase 0 to 100, I don't believe it. I usually challenge it. I say, if you look at the anger iceberg and you're carrying the disappointment, the anger, the hunger, the fear overall, we're walking around at 50. So all it takes is one situation for us to be at 100.
I like that. I like that a lot. I have seen that iceberg analogy, but as it comes to what it takes to build to success. But I love your analogy with what we're actually dealing with underneath the surface, and then what you actually get a chance to see. Oh, wow. I really love that. What would you say to the parents who are, trying to make things work, maybe out of work, very, very short fuses? Now you have the children at home. I can't tell you how many parents, it's been in fun and in gist, but we all know that there's a level of truth to this. I can't tell you how many parents I've talked to who have said, I don't know what to do with this child.
Absolutely.
And I remember going into panic mode, when summer break would fall on me, and I'm like, or spring break, and I'd go, what am I going to do with my kids? Well, it's kind of funny, but there are people out there who really don't know and who are not doing a good job at making home a safe space. So what do you say to that?
First things first, I want to say just keep trying, because I know that it's hard when you have the weight of the world on your shoulders, and then here comes your kid upset because they can't have this certain cereal that they want, and you just know that it's something that's so minute in the grand scheme, but to them, it may mean the morning. That may make their morning, you know? So I'm gonna put the disclaimer out there that I'm not a parent, so I can only empathize, and I can't, I can only give so much perspective, but I know it's hard. Just hang in there. Look for resources. And again, I know that's easy for me to just say, look for resources, but there's just so much that so many people don't know. And I know it differs by, the city, the state, or what have you, but you never know until you ask the question. Mm-hmm. So if you have to make that phone call or write that email, I know that's just another thing to add to your plate, but you don't know what could come of it. Something that could change your world upside down could come of it. And then as far as keeping the kids busy, with some of the kids that I work with, their iPads are their worlds, their tablets are their worlds. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have that, they can do a lot with some paper and some crayons. There's a lot of resources. All you have to do is just maybe Google activities for kids, or if you want to try to make a type of therapeutic activity, there's a lot of resources on like Pinterest and all of these different websites of just things that kids can do with stuff you can get from the dollar store. If you have to buy anything, let them go outside. Yeah. Let them go outside and play. I know it's easy to sit in front of the TV all day. I do it on my Saturdays. But going outside and playing, we just have to go back to basics, unfortunately, for a while.
I love your answer. And, whether you're a parent or not, just the fact that you said keep trying, because it's really all we have. Yeah. That's really all we have. We just keep trying and know that if you are attempting to get better every day, then things will get better every day. I think we have just like this generalization that, it should be fixed. Jobs in place, school, children are in place, and then I can deal with me, and that's part of the overwhelm. I like to do mindfulness meditations. In fact, I do it every Saturday on Facebook, and it has grown. And largely because people, it's not that, well, there are some people who have never meditated before, but there are people that are just curious. If there's another tool that I can use, please tell me what it is.
Absolutely.
And then some of them are like, silencing the thoughts in your mind, or sitting still long enough for thoughts to flood your mind is a little scary.
Absolutely. Being still and with yourself can be so scary. Just the things that might cross your mind, or the things your mind might go back to, or you might notice an ache in your body that you've noticed for a while and is making you nervous. Mm-hmm. It's being mindful can be difficult, absolutely. But even if you don't like it, even if it's difficult, I saw a quote recently, and I know I might butcher it, but it's something like, even if you fall forward, it's still a forward motion. So you're still moving towards something. You may not have hit the jackpot yet, but you're still trying. There's still effort.
I love that. And mindfulness has saved me in so many ways. Well, you know what it does? Let's talk about just the practice of mindfulness just for a moment. But for me, what it does is it helps you to, going back to your iceberg, realize that there's some underlying issues, and you're more mindful of those. And if you can address one or two of those, or just at least one of those things, mm-hmm. the whole thing can shift. Your attitude can shift, your perception of it can shift, and that in turn will help the environment, with family or whomever you encounter, I think. What are your thoughts?
So I've recently gotten more into mindfulness. And at first, I will admit, it was a hard sell. I know that I tell others to do it, So I'm trying to practice what I preach. I can last a good maybe 10 minutes, but after that, I'm ready to wiggle a little bit. I'm ready to move. But I definitely enjoy telling people to be mindful, and that they can be mindful anywhere, that they can be mindful waiting in line in the grocery store, going for a walk in the park, cooking, like your day-to-day activities, especially if you're done with work, you're home, you're in a space where you can relax, whatever you may be doing, that's an opportunity to be mindful. Even just like sensory things, like rubbing a soft blanket, how does it feel? Using your five senses and just thinking about maybe the food you're eating. What do you taste? Does it taste good? Did you put a little too much garlic?
Right.
Just being more mindful in everything we do, and just really just slowing down our day. Because it's easy Monday through Friday to just go. I'm going about my motions. I have to do X, Y, and Z before 5 o'clock. But taking that time to slow down, I think, can make a huge difference in your day, and honestly helps you sleep better. That's a major benefit, is that helps you wind down, hopefully get some more sleep, because I'm sure everyone could use or benefit.
And restful sleep.
Right.
Restful sleep, because it is healing. But it's not so much when your mind is going a million miles an hour and you're waking up in the middle of the night with thoughts of, what do I do with these kids? Or I've been quarantined for months. What do I do with this significant other? And I think that if we can get back to our own foundation, being mindful of how we're built and how we're wired and what we need in our lives, then, and fill that up, then we can become more mindful about, man, all I have to do is maybe, buy my child's favorite cereal, or maybe all I need to do is take my child for a walk and just give them more one-on-one attention. I notice, is that not one of the reasons why kids act out, is because of attention? What do you think about that? I know there's levels of attention, but yeah.
It's definitely it depends kind of answer, but I think children just naturally do want attention, and naturally want attention from those they care about and that care about them. And just, spending that extra 30 minutes on a walk or going to the park with them can definitely be helpful and beneficial to the relationship, especially with school starting in a couple of weeks. And so many
kids, I cannot imagine that it's really going to happen.
Yeah, so many kids sitting in front of a laptop for however many hours of the day for school, and they're at home. It's going to be a huge change of pace. So they may want that attention even more. They may even want it while they're in class. That's going to be, a learning curve as well.
I do not envy any parents who have children at home at this time. I do not envy them, especially when they're socialites, because those who are socialites need engagement, they need interaction. And, is there anything out there to help parents get to know their child better? Because I really think, we just have children and we assume they're going to be these great little beings. And then we realize, oh man, they've got a different personality. Some that you may like, some you're like, oh my. And I really think we just go on automatic pilot, rearing our children in this way that we were raised, and it doesn't necessarily work.
I feel like this may be an idealistic or simplistic answer, but a part of it may just be paying attention. And I know that we watch children, and we make sure they're not hurting themselves, that they're not drawing all over their walls and all these things. But there's a difference between, watching and being with your child and listening and talking. And kids are hilarious. And you can get a lot of information from things that you would never think, especially like coloring and drawing and playtime, using toys, all of these different things. You can learn so much about. There's they're just open books, so much of the time. So I would just say spending more time and really just listening.
I love that. I love your answers. And yeah, it sounds simplistic, but what you're saying are elements that we need to be reminded of. It's like, of course we know it, but we're not thinking about that because we're thinking about so many other things and
Right.
trying to make so many other things work. And then when you say just pay attention, it's like, oh yeah, okay. I guess I hadn't. I just throw the kid in the tub and feed him.
At the very least, we're just trying to keep them alive.
Right?
That, then, it's a successful day.
Man, there is so much truth in there. There is so much truth. I wanted to spend some time talking about our interactions with our children and the state that we are in with the pandemic when it comes to home being a safe space. I really wanted to talk about that. And of course, you could do a series on your own just on that. But I want to fast forward before you leave me. I want to fast forward and talk about dating. Or as some of my friends might say, what dating? Help!
Help!
Man, I know that there's online dating out there and there's pros and cons with that. But I think with the pandemic now, it's added an extra level of anxiety on the whole deal. It's like, if I kiss you, will I die? It better be a good kiss. I'm just saying. What are your thoughts on that?
Dating during the pandemic. I feel like that should be a Netflix documentary, right?
I know, because I know there's so much going on right now. People are getting into porn that were not into porn before.
Right.
I mean, because there's a socialization that we miss. I mean, even going, for a lunch date, meeting you before this interview and being able to have a conversation would have been a blast. But, we have to settle for virtual. So,
yeah. It's been a journey from what I understand. And that's just from friends, from stuff I've seen on social media. I think it's exactly what you said. So many people are just missing that attention and that interaction and that communication that all of these dating websites are thriving. It's been a great option. Even sites that aren't made for dating have these features like direct messages that are an avenue towards dating. So I think it's definitely something a lot of people have taken heed in. I know that a lot of the dating apps have introduced a video chat feature that they didn't have pre-COVID, and that gives people an opportunity to, in a sense, FaceTime without having to exchange numbers or anything like that. So you can get the chance to meet new people without risking contracting the virus. But I think that it's a journey. It's definitely a journey. Everyone's experience has been very different. People have gotten creative in the dates that I have gone. I have heard people going on dates in the park when, usually you would just go to a restaurant or a bar or something like that. People are actually going outside to meet people now. And they're doing it, safely, hopefully, 6 feet apart from others. But I'm just thinking of all these stories at once.
I know there are a lot out there, aren't and you're right. I mean, it would be really cool to do a documentary because people have gotten creative. They've gotten very creative.
I've seen a video of two people who I guess met in a parking lot and just parked their cars next to each other and rolled the window down. They brought food. They each ate separately. Drive-ins are making a comeback.
Yeah. They're probably like 2 in each city now.
Yeah.
I knew I shouldn't have sold this drive-in.
They are thriving.
That is hilarious. Oh my gosh. Yes, I even saw once in an apartment complex, the guy visiting the young lady, and I was reminded of Romeo and Juliet or something, because she was on the second floor and he was down, looking up, talking to her. I was like, this is really cool. I like
the radio that he's holding above his head.
Very, very neat way to be romantic,
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about this dating thing. I guess we're all learning as we go, and that's with everything.
Yeah, it's definitely ever changing, and I've actually been enjoying watching the changes. It's taught me a lot about the way people compensate when we're missing out on something, and sometimes we do things that we wouldn't normally do when we're missing that human interaction, especially if we live alone. For those who might be in a city where they may not know many people, let's just remember to stay safe and wear our mask and wash our hands and all the good stuff the CDC recommends.
Right, exactly. That piggybacks or segues, I should say, into couples as well. Being creative and having to live with each other 24/7. You have one that's been traveling all this time, and then you realize, oh my gosh, how about that? It's like, don't you have somewhere to go? Oh, so, that segues into, getting creative. And you know what? For some women or couples, I should say, it might be their dream to finally see their significant other become more creative because you've been stuck in the house, for this long period of time. But I know for people that can fly, that usually are out of town just part of the time, they're probably like, what in the world?
Oh, you're still here.
Yeah. I've got some stories, but I'm not going to share them. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to tell them myself. I am not.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, I got some stories, boy. Oh my goodness. I just have to say this one.
Mm-hmm.
I was once married to a gentleman who used to travel all the time. He stopped traveling. I was like, oh God. It did well for me because I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much I loved you away. We're since divorced, so I can laugh about it. But I mean, I know I'm bad, Phallon. Did Frankie warn you about me? I mean, she warned.
She did not, but I'm glad she didn't.
I'm not that straightforward shooter. I just love comedy. I think it's healing anyway. So
absolutely.
Okay, so let me get back to my serious side. Let's talk a little bit about you mentioned overcompensating. Substance abuse is sometimes a part of that, right? How do we know that we're getting to a point where we're going to overcompensate? That is, lean more into substance abuse or addictions?
So I would probably say when you've noticed it's causing dysfunction in your life. When you can no longer function in the capacity that you could previously. If you find yourself doing things that you didn't do before, like say if it may be alcohol, if you find yourself, for those who are working from home, during your lunch break, instead of eating lunch at home, you're running to the nearest ABC store, liquor store, or whatever may be nearby. When you're noticing these changes in your daily activities, and if others notice it, and if others notice it and bring it up to you, because there are so many people who may notice it but just don't say anything for whatever reason they may have. But I think those are definitely common signs that, maybe I might be depending on this a little bit too much, or maybe I might be forming a dependency or a habit that may be difficult to break.
Yeah. Because I'm sure I've never been addicted to a substance, but, things like, food, sex, um, addicted to having negative conversations even, are things that people don't necessarily talk about, but there's still addictions, and there's still ways for you to feed whatever hole that is inside of you that's needing your attention. So that's why I wanted to mention it, because usually when people say substance abuse, we cut it off there, but there's food addictions as well. There's sex addictions. There's, what other addictions are there that people should be aware of?
So I have a different view. This is not backed by research or anything like that, but I personally feel like anything that gives us that great feeling inside, that joy, that excitement, maybe a little bit of a rush, I debate that that's something that could become a dependence or become a habit, because we like that good feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're chasing. Is that could be driving too fast on the freeway, that rush that you like. I say, in my opinion, could be something that could become a dependence or a habit.
I like that. I like that perspective a lot. I like it a lot. And I tell you why. When you mentioned that, I was thinking about an article that I read that said to be aware of constantly feeling like what was it? It was why is it that people can't hold long-term relationships? That's what it was. And so the article said that some people feel like they need a rush of the new person. And so they're constantly looking for the new person. And so then there's no longevity, there's no chance of longevity with that person because they're looking for the rush of the new person. Mm-hmm. So that could be an addiction.
Wow. And it may not even always have to be an official addiction. It might have to be something that's in, the diagnostic manual of mental health illnesses. And I just always felt like if it's something that makes you feel good, if you feel like you're needing it, you're craving it, you think about it, all of these things, that's just my opinion. That is something that
I like that.
Dependency, yeah.
I like that a lot. And I just really believe that the more we stop to learn more about ourselves, we don't necessarily fall into those traps. Mm-hmm. We know them as they crop up. That's one reason why I asked you, what are some of the ways that we would know that we're leaning toward an addiction? Mm-hmm. Wow, this is so great. I could talk to you every day. Because our life experiences are different every day. And sometimes with those experiences and changes, we're thrown off. And then it depends on, what's going on as to how we get back to being, our healthy selves. Mm-hmm. Because even death, right? Even death with COVID, a lot of people are having to deal with that. And then multiple people in their family or friend circle who are dealing with that. So life is very interesting. It's a perspective, which is one reason why you find, very angry people and very jovial people. It's our perspective, because it's not necessarily that the person who's happy has lived a happy life all of their times. It's a shift in their perspective. So I would love to be the person to be around friends like you, whose desire is to help people find a healthier perspective.
Absolutely. And my friends definitely do love having so I do have to set my boundaries. So that's something I always, say and preach to anyone I talk to, but especially my clients, is that boundaries, I think, are just so underrated, that there's so many times where we give in to something for whatever reason it may be, because we feel like we might owe somebody something, or whatever it may be. We may think that they might help us out later, so I'm just going to do boundaries. We talk about communication styles, and assertive communication being like the ideal way to talk to someone. So being able to communicate your needs, but also keeping in mind the other person's needs and finding that happy place. So as much as I do love therapy, I love doing it with my clients, I love helping out my friends and family as much as possible, I do have to sometimes put up those boundaries, because like we said in the beginning of this discussion, I have my own stuff. I'm trying my best not to carry the stuff of my clients. As a human and as a person, I can't always carry the stuff of my loved ones. So that's a conversation, no matter what your position in life may be. I always preach healthy boundaries.
Absolutely. And that's a significant way to end this conversation, because if people don't get anything else from this conversation, to remember how to protect yourself and protect your happiness, protect your needs, because you may have a need to be quiet. You may have a need to self-reflect. And if you've constantly got a phone that's ringing off the hook, you can't fulfill that need. So you do have to set boundaries. Or what is it with the word no? Why is it that people pleasers, I used to be, I'm a recovering people pleaser. That word no, it was just so hard to say, but then it's so empowering when you realize that you're giving parts of yourself away that only you can reclaim. Because as long as you're being the strong one, they're going to take it. They're going to take it and wear it out till the wheels fall off. And you be like, no.
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with that. No is such a powerful word. And once you get in the habit of saying it, it just takes so much, and you're just going to feel so much relief. There's so much relief with being able to say no and having your no respected. That's the other part of it, is having people around us who respect us when we implement those boundaries and say no.
Right.
And to question the people who don't like our boundaries.
Yeah. And how is it questioned? We can wrap it up that way. People question it by asking you why, or trying to talk you out of your no, or
right, or trying to make you feel bad for saying no. All of these different tactics to push you towards yes. Anything where you feel like you're being pushed towards saying yes, I call that some type of manipulation. And you need to question the person who you're speaking with, who you gave the boundary to. Because if they can't understand why you said no, and you don't even always have to explain yourself. That's the other part. I don't have to tell you why I don't want to do something for you or for your benefit. So those are just like little keys that I tell people to look out for when they're putting those boundaries in place, is how do they react to your boundaries.
I love that. I would love to have a whole conversation about that one. Yes, I would. Will you come back again, Phallon?
I will absolutely come back. Yes.
Oh, that is wonderful. Well, we'll of course do it at a convenient time for you. So no pressure, but I would love for you to come back, because some of this interview I'm going to use for Black Women in Radio in its entirety, but I would love to cut pieces of it as a promo, just little 2-3 minute reminder of some of the things that we can do to, take care of ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. Is it okay if I share a couple resources for people listening?
Would you share some resources with us?
Absolutely. So these 2 websites that I'm going to mention are ways for people to find a therapist if they are interested. Okay. So there's one website that I absolutely love. I actually found my therapist on this website. It's called therapyforblackgirls.com. And they have a search engine where you can narrow it down by insurance, distance, and all these other, things to find the right person. And they have their profiles, and you can reach out. I love that website. Wow. And they also have resources there. They have an Instagram. It's if you're interested in finding, if you are a Black woman or a woman of color and you would like to find a therapist who's also a woman of color and or Black, I definitely suggest that website. There's also psychologytoday.com. That one has just so many therapists on there. You can also narrow it down by your insurance. If you need someone who has a sliding scale, awesome resource. And then of course, just go through your insurance provider to find someone and network. Those are 3 resources that I definitely wanted to mention. And I also wanted to mention the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
Oh, yes, too. Yes.
Just in case anyone is listening who may be experiencing or knows someone who may be experiencing thoughts to hurt themselves. 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-8255. You can also Google it if you didn't catch it just now, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention that.
That's huge. We mentioned pandemics early on. That is another pandemic. That is another experience that we are seeing a rise in the rate of suicides, and along with COVID and Black Lives Matter and domestic violence. So these are very serious issues that I just believe that we all have to just be more mindful about what it is that we need and who we are around, and be mindful of what they need, so that hopefully we can prevent some of these occurrences. As far as suicide is concerned, would you share a few signs that we should be aware of?
So if you notice that a person might be giving away their belongings, if you feel like, say you're hanging out and when they say bye, that bye felt a little different, I want us to also be able to listen to our intuition and not be afraid to ask, do you want to hurt yourself, or do you want to die by suicide or kill you? Whatever phrasing you choose to use, ask the question. A lot of people may think that asking that question puts the thought into their mind, and that's not necessarily the case. If they were thinking about it, that's not going to push them. For a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not going to push them to follow through. And I just always mention that that key. If you know someone who may be suffering from depression or has been suffering from depression, and they've just been isolating even more, and there's just so many signs. If you notice that they have been collecting certain belongings that might be used to hurt themselves, so that could be razors, whatever it may be, let's just keep an extra eye on people who, again, that intuition, that doesn't look right, this doesn't feel right, and ask the question. I think we would regret not asking and for something fatal to happen than asking and, they say no. And even if they say no, still, I want you to keep an eye on them.
Right.
And if you ever feel like it's beyond your control, please reach out to other sources. You can reach out to the hotline if you need to call emergency services. I just always say action. Just action when you're not sure that someone is okay.
And people who feel like they're in a hopeless state can always call the hotline as well and just talk to someone, right? So it's not that someone has to be in the act or you suspect, but it could be the actual person, right? To call.
Right. And there are even phone numbers that I don't have access to at the moment, but that specialize in certain demographics. So LGBTQI plus, children, teenagers, all these different demographics have hotlines for when they may be feeling suicidal, or even just like a peer hotline. I believe there's one for teenagers. So it's just a simple Google search. You will find so much, so many resources.
Well, you are wonderful. I am just so honored to have you on, and I am so looking forward to inviting you back whenever the time is right,
and speaks to you. But in the meantime, I will make sure that this information gets out on as many platforms as possible. I love your resources. I do psychology today all the time too. As a matter of fact, I have it up now, talking about substance abuse. I was just reading before I came on with you, but thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your expertise, and thanks for sharing it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed talking with you. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, well, I will be in touch.
Okay, sounds great.